Great.
Yeah.
All right, we are live and got Jennifer Haddock with us. I see Mick O'Brien has joined already, so that's lovely. We're going to be talking about whatever lights us up inside these days, and um, Harrowings is about scratching the surface and churning up to see what will sprout in the conversation between us. And that field, I think there's an old phrase, right? That I'll meet you out in a field somewhere where beyond wrong and right. And
Oh, see.
yeah, I think Rumi might have written it or somebody like that. It sounds like a Rumi-esque kind of thing.
It does.
So we'll meet in that field. We'll harrow it up and let's see what happens. Jennifer, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to be here again and talk Hal again. We had such a fun conversation last time. It was all over the place, Hal. I watched it and I was like, wow, we really jumped around topics. That was good. Um, so, yeah, looking forward to being here and talking about what lights us up inside these days.
Yeah. Actually, my light's kind of gone out a little bit lately. And I think to be honest about it, I think that sometimes that happens. I think a lot of that has to do with just living in the world and seeing the world outside of us and realizing, we could do better than this. I
Absolutely.
don't know how entirely. You remember that old song? I don't know if you might be too young to know this one. It was by a band called 10 Years After, and they said, I'd love to change the world, but I don't know what to do. So I'll leave it up to you.
I don't know that song, but I like it. And that's what we're all kind of doing, isn't it? All kind of hoping to change the world and not knowing how. Um, it's funny because in my field, there's like a big, not big thing, but we had I don't know, like some memes that went around, some magnets that were made at a conference. It's like save the world with behavior analysis.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so a lot of us in our academic circles kind of talk about like what would that look like, and it seems like a lot of students who are first introduced to behavior analysis have that kind of aha moment, and then that's their mission, and then they quickly learn like, oh, it's not so easy to change the world, is it? So it's kind of funny. Hey, MJ.
Yeah, MJ Polk. Yeah, I don't know if MJ is a he or a she, actually, but I saw that they had reflected also on one of your comments recently about getting your own talk show, so to speak, getting off the ground. So,
Oh,
have you
oh,
started having guests yet?
no, no, no. And I was just kind of thinking about like what would live events or video content for me look like, and what I want to do. I don't want to just me sit there and talk at people. That's strange. Um,
I've done it. I've
I
done it.
I have no idea. MJ had previously suggested that maybe I could read some of my things that I've written, or
Yeah,
especially
voiceover.
for yeah. Oh, I do voiceover quite a bunch, but as far as like live video content, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought much about it, but I'd love to. One of the commenters asked, "Where can I read what this live is about?"
Well, that's a good question. And Harrowings is just a raking up of the soil, that's when you're doing agricultural work to prepare it for things that you might want to plant and see what sprouts up, right? So that's really what this live thing that I do with my guests is about. I want to learn about them, hear what's lighting them up inside. Um, One conversation at a time, trying to sort of get an understanding between people of our common ground, because we all have common ground. I forget where you are, by the way,
I'm in
geographically.
North Carolina. North Carolina.
North Carolina, and I'm in Washington D.C. And I walked about 13.1 miles around Washington D.C. yesterday, and behavioral analysis of I spend a lot of time just watching people and wondering what's going on in their heads as I'm
Mhm.
walking along inside my head.
Yeah.
and the behavioral analysis of, watching us going through life and wondering how conscious are we?
Yeah.
There's so much going on just to be bipedal, right? To keep upright and get all that balance and stuff, and my nervous system has to be sort of attuned to that walking mode. But I'm watching people and thinking about people and thinking about how we're all interrelated and how all of our actions are impacting everybody else, and how little consciousness of that most of us, I think, have.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just as conscious as I am, just thinking the same thoughts. I don't know.
Could be some of them. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't spend much time thinking about what other people are thinking, but I do. I like what you said there, like how you think about how not many of us think about like our interconnectedness, our kind of how everything we do, say, our actions in the world affects everyone else.
We're getting a lot of feedback here. So, what is this open Substack, blah, blah, blah?
PS says Raleigh, yay, hey
Just
Raleigh.
one of
Oh,
your posts, I
do
think.
you? Oh yeah. So MJ shared my lucky scar post, which was about John Ronaldo had an author on Substack had found
Yes.
of my poems that I wrote in notes because I often write notes, just kind of one off, just write a little poem or whatever. He found it, loved it, and I was like, oh, that's so cool that you loved it. And
Yes.
so he wrote a post about it and then interviewed me, and then I wrote a post about what that poem was about. Eventually, I got to it in that post. And so I guess this is a prompt for me to talk about my hand. I don't-
And it could be also a prompt to talk about. You said John Ronaldo interviewed you as well?
yeah, yeah. So that was a really fun podcast. It's called um, some stories, Substack, and Soul Work, and it's a great Kazakers and John Ronaldo, and they are terrific people. And yeah, I was on their podcast, and we talked about my hand. I had mentioned in that post, Scarred Lucky, that my um, part of it was about living with amniotic band syndrome. So I was born with amniotic band syndrome, and in that podcast, it was like the first time I had talked about it live in person, so that was kinda neat. Um, and last time I was on, I had mentioned to you that, like, in 2021, I had moved home and kinda gave up my career path and, decided to start using behavior analysis, which is my profession and my discipline of psychology, on myself in a lot more ways. Um and it didn't start, like, right then. I had been kinda doing it a little bit for, like, chronic pain and depression before that, but, like, when I moved back home, I, and eventually, like, got through an episode of depression or dark night of the soul, however you wanna talk about it. Once I started kind of seeing some improvements, I started saying, "Okay, I'm gonna start using the science in other areas of my life," and one of the big things in my life I wanted to work on was using my hand more publicly, which has always been kind of a source of anxiety for me, taken a lot of mental energy, to kinda
I'll bet.
hide or think about it or just not think about it actually. So I started working on it, doing some exposure therapy and, which is, like, just basically making myself use my hand publicly, more publicly,
Right.
and not get so caught up in all of the covert behavior that goes along with that. Uh, and so, yeah, so I got to be on that podcast and talk about that. And I've just recently written that one post here, but I have written about it lots of other places, like on my blog and on Facebook. So eventually I'm going to bring some of that writing here. It's just hard to know where to start because I've been doing this for like 3 years now, and it's not just my hand. I've been trying to use behavior analysis in other areas of my life. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of behavior analysis can change the world if we're and one of the things I saw that you've written here is that behavior analysis is the only discipline of psychology that has a cohesive, unifying philosophy
Mhm.
behind it as well. Do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Oh gosh. Okay, switch
Yeah,
gears.
I'm just going to
Uh,
open it up. Wide aperture.
yeah, I'm looking for a book. Hold on. I've got a
Please. I
good I've got a good book. All those books you see on my bookshelf behind me are behavior analysis books.
I
Um, and I've got a really good one. I don't know where it is. I won't go looking for it, but it's by Mecca Chiesa. If anyone's interested, I'll write it in the chat. And it's called something about radical behaviorism. But it's the best. That and this book, Understanding Behaviorism by William Baum, are one of the two best kind of introductory books to
Oh,
kind of
cool.
and um, to answer Hal's question in a in a thorough and
Read this book.
or of course about behaviorism by B.F. Skinner. That's always um,
A classic.
the
Right.
OG. But so if you really want to understand what is meant by it, like the philosophy behind it is cohesive. But and in short, let me see if I can get there.
Elevator pitch. Yeah.
Off the top of my head, elevator pitch. I would say that okay, so it's not like we make up theories about what's happening. We have experimentally derived um, findings that we then apply to new situations, new behavior, yada yada. So it's more about uh, the science of behavior analysis is about discovering commonalities and general principles that will apply in different situations. And so then the science of behavior analysis and that application is about like testing the generality of those principles. And so in doing that in all those research applications and the experimental analysis and the applied side and in clinical practice, there's no coming up with like hypotheses about new made up things that we then prove the existence of statistically through group differences. It's more about, um, yeah, like I said, generality of those principles. And no other discipline of psychology has that underlying philosophy where they say, like, okay, this is how we're looking at the world through a natural lens, through determinism, parsimony, empiricism, um, all of these things. They don't have that underlying philosophy, and so they can just kind of invent new things willy nilly.
Well,
And
that's kind of like
so
the
cohesiveness
general
either.
zeitgeist these days, though, is just make it up.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah,
But I like the idea of actually having some empirical evidence to back up our findings and to use rationality and
yeah,
objectivity to the extent possible. Now,
yeah.
I'm in doubt about just about everything. I spend a lot of my time in skepticism,
Mm,
saying that this is the way it appears to me, but I could be wrong. Maybe somebody else has a different perspective on it.
yeah. And skepticism
So
is one of the tenets of radical behaviorism. So, um, and I guess I didn't really explain that well. I'll need a third try on your podcast to try.
well, we got I don't know how much time we have entirely. It was set for about an hour or so to talk.
Yeah,
Would that work for you?
yeah,
If it's if you need to get off, we can always wrap earlier or later. I would like to be respectful of people's time because, that's one of the most precious things we have, time and the attention. There's so much information being flooded at us all the time. And we get overwhelmed by the amount of information. Our attention is divided. I'm finding myself, working on a couple of certifications right now, and I'm not pouring myself into it quite as much as I'd like to be. I had the housekeeping coming in, so I walked about 13.1 miles yesterday just for fun, you know. And to watch the passing show, watch all these behaving people doing what they do on a daily basis, walking through the streets of a city and realizing, everybody's in their own head. Everybody is seeing things from their perspective, colored by the lens of their experience. and that I haven't got their perspective. I've
Mhm.
got my perspective. I could be wrong, right? I could have a totally different perspective if I listen to what somebody else has to say. And to have the experience, for instance, what you were talking about earlier of having a hand that was stunted, I guess, by the amniotic band. And so
Yeah.
I love the fact you're showing it now. It reminds me of a good friend of mine who was a thalidomide baby. He had a hand that's basically
Oh,
like just really just a stump and a bit of a
yeah.
thumb. But the guy can play the lute like you wouldn't believe. And he's a balladeer. And he had a prosthetic hand that he only used to scare people. As a joke, as a gag, he sort of worked his humor, I think,
Mhm.
was what he used in order to feel, you know, that he had been born that way, and that was the way it was, and has been. Very interesting guy, I thought.
Yeah.
Um, and I think right now he is the director of the Virginia Natural Museum or something like that down in Newport News, Virginia. I was really lucky, in coming up to be thrown in with people with all kinds of different varied backgrounds like that.
Yeah.
Um, but getting back to that idea of how we behave, and how that then colors how we interact with the world, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, to some extent, is that what drove you into behaviorism by any chance? Was there a connection, or have you found a connection between these things?
With my hand and
Yeah,
behaviorism. It's
yeah.
funny, John and Kaz asked me that too when I was on their podcast.
Oh, really?
I don't know necessarily. It's probably one of many, many factors that kind of just coalesced.
Yeah.
Um, I I had been working with children with autism before I graduated undergrad, and so I was like introduced to that population. And so when I went looking for jobs, I kind of stumbled into applied behavior analysis, just working with kids with autism and teaching through play and
Yeah.
taught kids that were like not speaking at all how to sign and then shaped the signs to talking vocally. And then they were going to general education classrooms. And I was just like, wow.
Mind blowing, right.
Yeah. So I had to learn more about it. What am I doing? What is this magic? And so I went to school and then went down many, many rabbit holes. Went to school and went another school and another school. And so, yeah, that was kind of my love for it was I found kids with autism first. And maybe that was my related to my hand because I talked to kind of John and Kaz about this, about how kind of my career trajectory kind of got shaped up. I ruled things out based on what I didn't want to do, based on partially my hand. Like I liked chemistry and I liked biology, but when you get deep enough, you have to start putting on gloves and using your hands to do things. And so I didn't want to do those things. And it sounds silly, but gloves are real hindrance. They're a real nuisance.
I'll bet.
and
Yeah.
I Yeah, so, like and I had, like, anxiety about all that, so I avoided those kinds of things, so I do think it kinda shaped my career path in some ways. I found that working with kids, they don't necessarily ask, and kids with autism definitely don't ask or care or make fun of you or anything like that, so maybe there was a little bit of that there. It was, like, some natural reinforcement, and I had always liked kids, and, I just kinda relate to people with autism. I kinda get it a little bit sometimes. So, yeah, it was just a lot of variables, but I do
Yeah,
think my
I can't imagine what it was like before we had real understanding of how to interact with people who are neurodivergent in whatever method, whether you call it
Mhm.
autism or whether it's Asperger's or whether I think there are a lot of different types of neurodivergence. I
Yeah.
probably have a few. And
Yeah. I
right.
definitely am a category. Yeah.
And I think that, we were thrown into the world in a way that leaves most of us kind of traumatized because we're very helpless on arrival and dependent on the care of people who are maybe not as well equipped to do so. Um, and think that generates some degree of neurodivergence as well. What do you think of that idea? Let me just throw one idea out at a time.
Environmentally induced neurodivergence. Yeah, maybe. I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that other experts would have a lot to say about that one, but I'm not sure. I I I will say as a behaviorist, I'm not like I don't love the word neurodivergence because it implies that the brain is the cause and the brain's not a cause.
Okay.
Brain is a participant. So I see I mean,
Hmm.
in our culture to kind of overemphasize the brain and the role of the brain, and the brain is cool and it's fascinating, and of course we wouldn't do any of this without it. Of course not. But as a causal mechanism, the brain doesn't exist in a vacuum,
It's just one part. Yeah.
and I find that our everyday language goes back to the brain a lot, and we put a lot of emphasis on the brain, which takes the locus of control away from us in some ways, and it puts it somewhere inside of us that we can't see or act upon, which isn't very helpful for changing anything or identifying variables that actually do affect us. So I don't know the word.
Okay.
I've always tried to think of a synonym for neurodivergence, but it just caught on so much, and it is such a
Yeah, we
good.
need a new label, maybe. And the thing is the labels we apply to things do shape our perspective on things.
Yeah, like
There's some
environment.
places that don't have a word for certain diseases, and therefore they don't have them.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but there's some cultures that probably don't have a word for headache, so nobody has one.
That and yeah, and that's a really interesting thing to think about too, is that, like, do these things exist because there's a word for it? Like, ADHD is a set of behaviors, it's a set of characteristics, but when it gets diagnosed, no one's looking at your brain and saying, "Yep, there's your ADHD right there."
Really?
They're they're looking at your behavior, or mostly they're asking
All
for
right. They're seeing the manifestation of what
yeah,
they think is organically happening in the brain or the gut biome for that matter.
yeah,
I'm thinking that the gut brain, is kind of important to us as well and drives a lot of our behaviors. I mean, it certainly drives my desire to eat.
right.
Right?
And when we look at well, okay, so I talked about a lot of different things there, but, like,
Yeah, we could
the
go
word neurodivergence, we could use maybe another word like neuroenvironmental mental divergence, I don't know, but
environmental divergence. Yeah, well, that's the thing. We are thrown into the world, like I said, into the environment, into the social network that we have, whatever it is. And it's going to impact us, and we're going to have to navigate those relationships with our environment. Maybe that's the way I'm trying to actually phrase it. You're helping me refine my thinking. That's why I like doing these things because I get to like toss it around a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, but I do think, I don't know, listeners out there start to notice, like, in your everyday language, how often we attribute something
I
to the
think,
brain, and then it ends the questioning. It ends inquiry, like, Skinner said, it allays curiosity and brings inquiry to an end. So, basically, you're done questioning, you have nothing you can act on from that, you've blamed the brain and la-di-da, go on your way. But if you actually look for the environmental factors that preceded and are related and are functionally related to the behavior, I think that goes a lot further than just attributing causes to the brain and stopping there. I don't know.
yeah,
Just
and
my
I think that's something we ought to probably think about in the global situation. When we look at the situation in our country and the global situation of humanity overall, we have significantly transformed by just sheer numbers. The way in which people navigate being alive. I mean, the way we're doing things these days. I was just reading something recently. I don't know if you may have seen it about Generation Z being worse than you imagine, written by
oh,
a Generation Z person.
really?
Um, yeah, and They were talking about, and this is not just Generation Z, it's like all of us, how with the pandemic and such, we've gotten to the point where we can DoorDash just about anything we want. We don't have to get up and move. We have social relationships through things like what you and I are doing right now. We're not actually sitting down at a cafe talking eyeball to eyeball.
Mhm.
Since I've heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, and I don't know if we talked about it last time or not, that by not having eye to eye contact with real human beings, we don't get that oxytocin, that feel good hormone flowing through us.
Interesting.
Have
This
you heard that? I don't know.
No, I haven't heard that, but I would be interested in that just because.
Screen to screen doesn't do it, apparently.
Go ahead, I'll tell you why I'm interested in a minute. Finish
No,
what
go
you
ahead. No, like I said, screen to screen doesn't do it, apparently. And I don't know. I want to fact check that actually, because when I heard it, it made sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense, but how are they measuring that? I'd be interested in the methodology behind that, like,
Yeah,
where.
I think it was a Psychology Today article actually that, a
Yeah.
popularized thing. So I'm
When I look
skeptical.
Yeah, when
Good.
I see like that, I look for the original research and I see, like, was this survey? And it's survey data, and you're just jumping to some big conclusions.
That's the only
Or
exercise I get, jumping to
I
conclusions.
sit people down, somehow measure their oxytocin while they're looking at a screen versus talking to a human, like, those real life measures are really hard to get, so I'm really skeptical when I hear stuff like that because 'cause I'm like, "How or do they know that? Are they making some leaps through some other research there?" Um,
It could
but
be
in
just anti-Zoomers, you know?
It could be. Yeah, and who's funded that research? Somebody.
That's right, you gotta follow the money.
You gotta follow the money. But also, I just think that a lot of those, kinds of things, like, look at the methodology, like, what did they actually measure? What was actually observed? And are they jumping to conclusions? Because a lot of times I think, especially in psychology today, they like to kinda, um
Sounds good. Yeah, that'll sell a magazine.
yeah, they want you to read the magazine. I'll just say
So
that.
anyway, we can dive into that one, offline and, see what we can find out. But I do think there's a lot of value in people being with people, people connecting with one another, whether it's virtually like we're doing here and having conversations with each other, so we can get better understanding of each other.
Mm,
Even though I don't think I'll ever really understand or be understood. I think I've given up on that at some level, but I'm still interested in bouncing it around because I can find things to think about that I wouldn't find otherwise. It's
yeah.
like the art of conversation. That's really a big part of why I like to do this type of thing with somebody like you. And we had a good dynamic going on, it felt like the first time we talked. I wanted to touch upon another one you did recently, with Harriet and I think, Anne.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about what you were doing there and what y'all came up with? And you're continuing to do that, right? You've done a few?
Yeah, well, Harriet came up with the idea of having a channel devoted to women's perspectives, and that
Hmm.
was a broad category.
Right.
Um, and so Anne and I joined for the first couple times, and um, yeah, it was fun to hop on and talk to everybody and just kind of free chat. And that's kind of what it was just like conversations about topics that we would they would pick. Um, I felt like it's just too much. I have too many writing projects and too many different little things that I want to do. So it was just too much to participate regularly, but I'm going to be a guest. And I still follow their work and all that good stuff. But it's called Women's Perspective if anyone's interested. Harriet's doing a really great job with it. She's having on guests and writing lots of stuff for it. So it's good.
Yeah, and I had her on, just her and me talking out by the National Cathedral a couple of days after that.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And I've seen her, come on as a viewer of my passing show. I don't know if you ever see the passing show when I'm walking around just talking to the
Yeah.
whatever I'm watching, you know, although it make you seasick, some people tell me, but
I
very
saw
low production value.
Yeah, I saw that before. I was interested, but I didn't make it very far along because I think I was also walking. I was like, "Oh, this is cool." It's like meta walking.
Yeah, she came in as I was walking back from the Lincoln Theater last night, in fact, which was kind of nice. And I saw a few hearts fly up, and I don't know if she was hitting them or not, but that's always helpful, when somebody does that kind of thing. You were talking about having your own, you know,
Yeah.
talk, maybe just going on and talking to the screen. I think that's worth doing, and you know my inspiration for doing that was
What?
Patti Smith, you know,
Patty
the artist
Huh?
and
Really?
author. Yeah,
Yeah.
she goes on with her Substack subscribers just from her bedroom and,
Really?
like, no makeup, nothing, just talking about whatever, grabbing a book from the shelf to say, "Let's, talk about this," and then she'll just wing it. And that's sort of what my inspiration for doing this is as well, just to wing it to some extent
Yeah.
and see what happens and see what clicks, and maybe, just maybe, the idea being amplified through my voice or your voice hits somebody else's ears or retinas and does something,
Yeah. Act in new way.
and let's see what those ripple effects do. I've been having the everyday junglist on every so often, who's in Tijuana, Mexico, and he's a micro and molecular biologist, and he's got really interesting things to talk about, and he's kinda crazy at the same time, so we have a lot of fun together. He said I was the nicest guy on Substack, and somebody else came along called the Human Code Project. Don't know what that is, but I invited them to come on sometime, so we'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of folks, knocking my door down to get onto Harrowings, probably because it is kinda pointless for me. I want to hear what you're doing and see what comes up and
Yeah.
amplify your signal through the noise more than my own. But that's the idea behind my video stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You were
I
saying.
love that. I love that. I no, I appreciate your content, and I like that you found me and want to amplify my signal.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
was surprised at how well things went the first time we got on together too. I think you were too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Really good. This
it
time
doesn't always happen necessarily. I haven't really had any clunkers, but sometimes it's kinda hard for me to follow the thread and figure out where I wanna go with it. And like you were saying, when you watched it back again, we bounced around a lot.
yeah, we did bounce around a lot to a lot of different topics, but it's okay. It was good. We covered, like, so many different things. So
Well,
much.
the main thread for me is that most of us, I think, are walking around kinda half asleep,
Mm.
and if we knew more about behaviorism that you know a lot about professionally, we might do better. We might be able to change the world, one behavioral analyst at a time.
I mean, this guy thought so, this guy.
Right, right.
Yeah, I really think so too. I really wish that some, like, just kind of the basics were taught, like, maybe in elementary school. There's some behavior analysts who are now getting into high schools and teaching because maybe through psychology or science courses. It actually fits really well in like biology, natural science courses to learn about basic principles of behavior. And so I think that if a lot more people kind of understood and even just adopted these approaches to science, not necessarily behavioral ones, but kind of took some of the radical behavioral philosophy, like a philosophy of natural science, study of why we do what we do, and like look at it from a natural science lens, then I think we would make a lot more progress as a society in terms of like psychology, psychiatry, neuroscience, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. But
And I
I
think
am so.
and let's get to some of the specific benefits you can see coming out of that. Can you get a little more granular? Drill down into that a little bit?
Well, there's a great paper. It's called Applied Behavior Analysis A to Z, and there's like 350 different applications of behavior analysis that they list in there, that things that have been applied in research. And so everything from like climate change related behavior, sustainability efforts, and stuff like that, to training. Oh, there's this cool research. It's called. There's an organization called APOPO, which I forgot what it stands for, but
Ooh.
Apopo, they train giant pouch sniffing rats to detect tuberculosis and landmines in Africa.
Training rats to save lives. Yeah. Popo.org. I just found it.
Yeah, very cool. So that's a really cool application of behavioral science. There's a whole subdiscipline of behavior analysis called organizational behavior management, which is for organizations and behavior, like sort of like industrial psych, but looking more at the specifics, like the actual what's happening, making lots of like mapping of processes and stuff like that. Um, and let's see what else. I mean, there's behavior analysis in health. There's like in hospitals and nursing, getting people to be more healthy, getting uh, there's all kinds of applications.
Yeah, getting me to be more healthy, that would really be nice.
Yeah,
Mm. As
and
opposed to just doing what I wanna do when I wanna do it.
yeah, and the really awesome thing I love about behavior analysis is that it's not only applicable to individuals, but applicable to groups and systems. And it looking at the way nonlinear learning or operant condition kind of shapes, like even cultures or groups, is super helpful and effective too. Um, Skinner wrote a lot, and there's been a lot of behaviorists that have written about cultural change. With behavior analysis. Um, I haven't, but but a lot of people have.
Being
So
here in Washington, DC, with the government shut down as it is, I wonder if, there are behaviorists in operation in our legislature and our government. Do we have inroads into pushing forward behaviorist, kind of agendas that could help make more effective government? You know, for instance, get these people to behave themselves. I'm not just being glib there. I'm serious about it. Do you know of any,
I,
governmental
I
applications happening?
governmental applications of behavior analysis.
Mhm.
I don't know of any in particular, but I do know that some people are interested in it. And I see there's a listserv that I'm on teaching behavior analysis. I've seen stuff about like voting behavior and political behavior come around lately, but I don't know of anything specifically like to government processes or things like that. I do know that behavior analysis have been involved and hired by the federal government for various things,
Mm.
but not
Well, definitely in the FBI, apparently. That's what came up first when I did a little search just now as I got curious.
that one's big. But also like the space program. Joe Brady was like a big early proponent of the space program training animals to go into space, training astronauts to go into space, that kind of stuff. Skinner was involved in Project Pigeon in World War II, which was training pigeons to guide missiles,
Right.
which is pretty cool. Um, I know what else has there been in government? I mean,
Just
that's
pulled
off the
up
top.
one from the National Library of Medicine, Behavioral Analysis and Public Policy paper.
Okay, yeah.
Let's surf around a little bit. Let's see, when was this done? 1988, so it's been a little while.
Yeah, I don't anyone's been beating our doors down. In the late 90s, there was insurance reform. It started paying for behavior analysis for autism specifically. So, with those financial contingencies in place, the growth of our field focused mostly on treating autism. So that was like where a lot of our research went. Excuse me.
Sure.
A lot of grad programs got built up around that because then there's a demand for it. So you need to have more clinicians. So um, I won't say unfortunately because I think it's been very fortunate for a lot of people that that insurance reform happened and that a focus of our field has become autism. But at the same time, it's also a little bit unfortunate for those who are interested in other things, other areas of application, because it's getting not harder and harder, but a little bit difficult to find a program that is would get you out of that niche. Um, but yeah, there have been applications in government. MJ is saying in the quote, I don't know if you want to change the topic, but he's saying he would love to hear me talk about my operant spirituality publication and my gatherings of pride posts. Could you
Oh,
please?
that'd be great. Before we go there, I would like to say I just found the thing on Decision Lab, why government projects fail, a behavioral analysis.
Oh, cool.
That's handy, because I got to questioning that because I live here in DC and I am kind of frustrated with, as I think most of us in America are, with our
Yeah,
government
yeah,
and its behavior.
yeah. It,
So, to put it simply, but let's move on to that other topic. That sounds very interesting. Operant spirituality.
yeah, hold on, sorry. Sorry. So MJ says that the connections between radical behaviorism and Eastern spirituality are so interesting. And I happen to think so too. That's why I started a little sub publication called Operant Spirituality. Um, I think that for me, I don't know where to start. My mind just went like 1,000 places. Uh,
Well, start anywhere and see if you can go to all 1,000.
there's there's a ton, there's not a ton, but there are a lot of papers on this topic. If anyone feels like reading academic papers on radical behaviorism in Buddhism, radical behaviorism in Eastern philosophy, one of my
Mhm.
colleagues, David Roth, is pretty into meditation and the Waking Up app. And so he's been talking a lot, like in our journals and on podcasts, about these connections. So I started writing my own little take because I've been a yogi for as long as I've been a behavior analyst. And so it took me a long time to kind of figure out how they were connected. I always understood the value, and like doing yoga is behavior. So I understand like there's responsive conditioning that happens. There's some extinction processes that happen with your verbal behavior. So it's really helpful. But in terms of like spirituality and like there is no self and that whole non duality stuff, it's just like a huge rabbit hole that I love going down into. um,
Yeah, I'm very much into this idea that David Hume said, we're just a bundle of impressions that happen, and we construct a self out of that that doesn't really exist.
yeah, yeah.
Right. But
And
I'm looking at operant spirituality. It says here that it's a contemporary concept that explores the intersection of behavioral psychology's principles of operant conditioning and spiritual practices and experiences. Is not traditional or widely established term in either field, but a framework for analysis, notably explored in a publication and related musings by you.
oh, is that what AI says
Yes,
about me?
yes, and it actually says it's yeah, notably explored in a publication and related musings by Jennifer N. Haddock, PhD, who approaches spirituality from a radical behaviorist lens. That's straight up out of Gemini.
Wow. Wow, Gemini, thanks for the shout out.
Key aspects include these bullet points: application of operant conditioning, reinforcement in religion, focus on observable behavior, behavioral analysis of spiritual concepts, and practical application. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't necessarily do those things
No?
within. No, but
Okay.
I could see how it would get that from the word operant.
Probably.
Operant is like selected by consequences, so I could
Gracious.
see how that would get there. That's very funny. Um, but yeah, so operant spirituality is where I try to connect Eastern spiritual teachings with radical behaviorism, or I interpret them from a radical behaviorist lens. Um, MJ asked about my most recent post, which was a little bit different than the other ones because it was this amazing quote by Jiddu Krishnamurti. Um, I'd have to find it. I've tried to.
Continue. Go ahead.
Can't remember it on my off the top of my head, but let me see. It's such a gorgeous quote. Okay. To forgive, there must have been a wound, and to be wounded, there must have been the gatherings of pride. There's no generosity of heart as long as there is a referential memory, the me and the mine. And it gives me chills. It gives me chills again. I've read it like 600 times. And I just love it for some reason. And it's just one of those quotes that like hit me as like, okay, there's a lot to think about here. And I wanted to try to unpack it. But in that post, I didn't I did not unpack it. Thank you for the hearts, whoever's giving me hearts.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
great.
I just
Give you
yeah,
interesting character on this. You know much about his history?
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he was a member of the Theological Society, or yeah, I know like his basic kind of
The
Wikipedia.
Theosophists actually sort of tagged him as being the world teacher, right? And then
Yeah.
he just said, "No, not really." So, you know,
Yeah. And he's like, I don't want anything to do with any religion or kind of ism. Find out for yourself. Yeah, I
yeah,
kind of.
dig into it. And there was another Krishnamurti named Uji Krishnamurti. Have you ever run into him?
Nice.
Worth the time, a lot of fun. I won't go into it. Go ahead. Don't wanna take you afield. You had 1,000 different places your mind went besides Krishnamurti, right?
Oh well,
And the chills were interesting, right? It's a
yeah. I
physical response to this.
Yeah, I find that I try to listen to my internal events whenever I encounter something
Mhm.
that really affects me. And so with this post in particular, I had nothing to say about it. It was interesting because I had read it so many times, but every time I thought would was trying to think of something, I was like, I have nothing specific to say about this. So that post turned into a creative writing piece. And
Oh,
then
great.
yeah, so I just wrote like the gatherings of pride was kind of like a sort of David Attenborough style, kind of commenting on ego and forgiveness. It's very strange. I don't know. But then
No
at the
self-critique now, just
yeah,
go with it,
but
it's great.
then at the I asked a bunch of questions that might be more behavioral because one thing I struggle with, which interestingly in the past few days I've encountered some events that have helped me in this struggle. But one thing I struggle with is like, who am I to write about spirituality? Like, I'm not a spiritual guru, I'm not a spiritual master, but I do. Um, but I am on this path with a lot of other people, and I feel like maybe that's what a lot of other people are doing too, so why not also add a behaviorist take? Because I don't wanna be like, "Oh, behaviorism is, like, the only way you can talk about things," or the only like, "This is right and that's wrong." I don't wanna do that, but I do think that there's value in offering, "Hey, this is how I hear it from my background as a behaviorist, and these are my words about that." So,
Right,
uh
and then you can get some ripple effects off of that too and get some interplay, and
yeah.
I like to have my ideas challenged personally because
Yeah.
I suspect myself of being blind to an awful lot of things around me because, I mean, how would I not be? We're
Mm,
constantly filtering this stream of information flowing at us that demands our attention.
mm.
But getting back to some of the spirituality you were into, so we have Krishnamurti. What other things were feeding into your operant spirituality? You've done yoga and
Well,
this
okay, so
kind of yoga?
I have, extensive yoga background and practice and teacher
Mhm.
training. I've done a few meditation teacher trainings, but what I really or a spiritualist I found recently is Sri Ramana
Ramana, right,
Maharshi, and he, I
right.
and just fascinated and really, really into his teachings for about a year and a half now. And so I kind of went down that rabbit hole and just do a lot of adjacent reading about Vedanta and the Upanishads and that kind of stuff. So I'm into more like the southeastern philosophies, I should say plural, because there's thousands of years of history there, and I just find it
Right,
fascinating. Some behaviorists there's an easier connection between behaviorism and Buddhism. There's a lot of similarities there, and I'd have to refresh myself on Buddhism to kind of go off go over some of those with you. But there's a lot of similarities there, and so some of my colleagues find resonance in that path. But I like more of the Hindu based philosophies. I find them to have more heart. I was telling someone this the other day. I find like the southern ones that have more heat, more warmth, more heart, and the northeastern philosophies to be a little cooler, a little more kind of standoffish. I don't know. That's just kind of my take. But yeah. Mm. My phone, by the way, I have 10% battery, so if I vanish, it's because it died.
Gotcha. Well, I don't wanna keep you too much longer anyway. We've got about 7 minutes till the hour, and, we think we were thinking of going there. Let's do this next time. Let's go more into the opera and spirituality, and, my explorations included Ramana, right? And then
Yeah.
there was others. Mayor Baba really caught my attention from the time I was in college, and, one of our sponsor for Amnesty International, Waging Peace, had been part of Mayor Baba's inner circle as a child. So that was kinda interesting. He's now a senior fellow at the Freedom Forum here in DC. I haven't run into him in years, but we did connect briefly virtually. I think he's off of Facebook now, is what we were talking about the other day when I was chatting with some of my friends who were on the Amnesty International bus when we went down to New Orleans for their Southeast Regional Conference back in '85. Yeah, so this goes back, right? And, Mayor Baba, of course, was also a major force in steering Pete Townshend's writing in The Who.
Oh, cool. Oh, I
The
didn't.
the rock opera Tommy is really about the spirituality of Mayor Baba. He's a
Wow.
deaf, dumb, and blind kid, plays a mean pinball. It's basically
Uh-huh.
that cause and effect thing. I think we talked a little bit about the cause and effect thing before. Determinism, Robert Sapolsky, da 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 da.
Yeah.
So we could go all kinds of different places, but we
Yeah.
should try to have a third conversation and maybe focus it a little more on the opera and spirituality this time because we just got to it. And thank you, MJ, for steering us in that direction.
I wanted to say before you leave the topic of
Thanks.
Baba, Billy Baum is a big fan of Mayor Baba. So
Oh,
um,
cool.
that connection there too. So
It's interesting. When I read the history, it's like, wow, this is weird. I like weird.
yeah.
It's kind of like why I have my Philip K. Dick as my little, icon here because he's pretty weird too. And I don't know, I can't tell what's real and what's not real anymore. I think a lot of us are in that mode of trying to feel our way through all of the information that's been presented to us
Yeah.
and find a we have to find our own way these days. I don't think we necessarily can follow any one person. We have to follow that inner light. What's lighting it up, right?
What's lighting you up? Yeah. Exactly.
It's lighting us up inside the Quakers were big into that, finding that inner light. I was with the bathrobe guy. Have you ever met him?
No, but I've
Um,
seen him.
he's been around a lot. He says peace, love, and meta every time, or peace and meta to everybody whenever he logs in. And I was walking around by the Friends Meeting House, which is really close to where I live, and there's a sundial out there. It says, "I mind the light, dost thou?" And I love that. So let's mind the light, and I'll let you go so you can have some degree of charge in your battery or in your phone.
Well, thank you. This has
And
been fun.
yeah, thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate it. It does help me keep my juices flowing to have people to talk to. And if anybody else wants to come on sometime and talk like Jennifer did with me, or with Jennifer on her new cast, if that's what you're doing.
Headed to that. I was just asking. No, thank you for having me on again. This is so fun. And thank you, everybody, for watching and your questions.
Yep, and we'll talk about Castaneda sometime. I didn't wanna ignore that one. I don't really know much about him.
Yeah, me neither, but I'll check them out.
Got the book somewhere. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, Hal.
Bye.